and I don't even think this necessarily applies to experience necessarily, but there's a spectrum of when people are up on stage, and maybe we would just pick on bodybuilding, men's bodybuilding, and you'd see one guy shaking, dripping sweat, and then the other guy at the other end, and he's just totally fine. He's just posed. And I think at some level, this might actually, like when the guy is doing that where he's falling apart, that might be bad coaching. And the coach needed to say, look, you need to relax. Yep. You need to not be at 100% contraction. And the other coach probably told the guy, look, you need to be about 80%, hold it, get into the pose, breathe. Yep. Don't breathe whenever you need to go. But the other guy, something happened.
Yeah, and then maybe it's a stage light as well, right? They're like, hey, they feel like the more they flex, the harder they flex, the better the muscle's going to look. But I think you're totally right. Like if you can say, if I can pose at 85% and I can hold that for 30 seconds without breaking a sweat, that's a much better position to be in than the guy who's going to, everything's 100%.
Yeah, because then you're shaking constantly. And then the downside to shaking, which is interesting, because I've talked to the spectator who watches people who shake, they don't see the shaking as much as you feel the shaking.
Right, yeah.
And then when you start to feel the shaking, you feel terrible. And then you just start to fall apart. Yeah. It's just like this slippery slope afterwards.
I think it is mental for sure, but the judges can notice it.
Yeah, they see it.
People just naturally, they don't get in their positions as quickly, right? They're out of their positions faster. When they relax, they really relax, right? They almost shut down, right? So I think the judges do notice it. So again, be on the person who can kind of, just practice 85%. It's a sweet spot.
Yeah, get in your pose. That's a lot of people can't get into poses. I remember different shows having the judges say, look, there's not so much transition. Get in your pose so we can see it.
Totally.
Yeah. I think people make that mistake. That's quite a bit. But if you go to practice,
if it's really tight between two athletes, that's what judges will look at to differentiate the better bodybuilder, right? It's not just the better physique. It's, hey, this athlete, he's getting right into the pose. He's holding it for longer. That athlete looks very similar to him, but he's delaying his time. He's all the transitions, but not much time in the pose itself. That the judges will give the nod to the athlete who's posing.
Yeah, that's interesting actually. Here's an interesting thought, and you've been around a lot of athletes that didn't win, right? Because there's way more that didn't win, and the bigger the show, statistically, the less likely you are to win. Right? Makes sense. How do you? I'm going to say console, but how do you help someone who, I've been there. I've gone into a show thinking I was going to win and come in third.
Yep.
And so, I
haven't won for a decade. So, there we go.
That's not what you're going to tell them.
No, exactly. It's like you're doing way better than I am. You did talk about journey earlier. So I think, first of all, you have to be like, okay, this was the best that we could have done, or this is the best package that you've brought to the stage for these reasons. The journey was the journey, and it was exactly what we wanted. But you can't control who comes on stage, right? And so you just got to focus on that. You can only control what you can control. Bring your best physique to the stage, and there will always be another opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And that's all you can do. But I think that's a good thing, right? That there are better athletes out there, because that's your motivation to continue to improve, right?
Yeah. It's a really tough thing though, because I think everyone comes into it. And, we probably look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I look good. Like, I'm going to destroy this. I'm going to be, and you start visioning where you're going to be and how you're going to look with your medals on and that sort of thing. That's tough though.